Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of the Grazer 2297K revival. In the last episode, we got the engine ready, got the oil change, got the PTO clutch on. That was way more of a video than I really wanted for as little happened. So in this video, what we're going to do is get the engine mounted into the base assembly. We're going to get that arm on. We'll get the drive belt that goes from the engine back to the transmission hooked up, and then we'll also turn this whole thing, and depending on how all that goes, we might even get the body put on and start running the wiring harness in this video. But at the very least, I want to go ahead and get the engine put in here, mounted, and get everything turned. And I should have an inner tube for this tire sometime late today, so early tomorrow I'll get it in and it'll have a tire on it off camera. You are not going to see me putting tires on and off. There's a lot of profanities uttered when that happens. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, this is like the 5th time I've tried to do this segment because I think I've been trying to go over too much information all at once. So we're going to keep it simple and just go in, little chunks. So the first thing we're going to do is mount the engine. Now to mount the engine, you need 4 mounting bolts, okay? They specify a 3/8, come on camera, come on. Well, they specify a 3/8 by 16 by 1 3/4 bolt. And for a nut, they specify a 3/8 by 16 flanged lock nut, which we can see here. That's actually the last mounting bolt that is in existence for the mower. I don't know where the rest of them went. They've probably been lost to time. So because Orscheln did not have 3/8 by 16 by 1 3/4, we're going with 3/8 by 16 by 2 inch. And then we'll just take up the slack with a variety of flat washers, lock washers, and nuts, because I absolutely despise lock nuts. So we're just going to get the engine lifted into here and get it bolted down. Then we'll move on to the next little step. All right, well, I'm going to lift the engine in because it is heavy, but it's not the most heavy thing. It's just kind of hard to get a hold of. That's the biggest deal. So just remember that the PTO clutch goes on that side because that's where all your belts line up. But give me a second here and watch me struggle to lift this thing in because my knee hurts and I don't want to do this. Careful now, we don't want to pinch any wires. Alright, we got it started. Okay. Get all of our wires clear. We don't want to break anything else, right? This isn't going to give us a ton of room to work in here, but I think this is the best way to do it. Plus, we're going to see how much I can cut off that clutch stop. Oh, we got a ways to go, don't we? Okay. All right, clutch stop has been removed. Let's see if we can get one of these bolts started. I have absolutely no clue if I've got it lined up or not, but I should be pretty close. If I can find the hole. Okay, there's one. They really did drill pretty tight holes here for tolerance. Okay, looking good. Let's get us a lock washer over that. And maybe a net. Oh. It's probably better to get all that started from underneath. There we go. Yep, that's gonna be fun to tighten down, isn't it? All right, well, now that we got one started, I just got 3 more. Of course, the one on the front there, and then the 2 back behind down in there somewhere. Those are going to be fun, but, you know, sometimes that's just how it works out. Pretty tight tolerances through here. I mean, they just don't give you a lot of room. An engine takes up a lot of space, doesn't it? So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out with the camera. Good grief. I'm going to go ahead and put the other fasteners in. Then we'll see about getting that belt on. Okay, well, I got all the bolts started. Tell me when you see a problem. Tell me when. That is not good. So, what we have to do now is take all the mounting bolts out. Thankfully, I only tightened one. But I got to take all those out, and then I think we can kind of get the motor and turn it, but leave it in the chassis. I'm going to have to pull the clutch and find a way to get a spacer in there. Otherwise, we are going to destroy that plug-in before we've even gotten started. That may have been why the Warner one was like it was. May have, but still, that's way too close a tolerance for my comfort, and we've got enough slack. I think we can come out a little bit with that PTO clutch and be okay. So, I'm going to undo everything we did in the last video, plus what I've started on in this video, and fix that. And then I'll let you guys know what I come up with. Well, I suppose that since I have to pull the damn thing back off, I might as well show you guys how it pulls off. I'm going to try not to get in the way too much, but I may have to. It should come off without too much trouble. Should. You get real tight on it. The best thing you can do is tap the end of that, and that should help it break free. But sometimes it doesn't want to. I think I put it on there too far. I think that was the problem. Maybe. But there was no kind of spacer or anything that was on this. Oh, my word. Yeah, there was no spacer or anything on this when I took the first clutch off. So, we'll just have to work it, I guess. I don't want to pull on it anymore because it's already catching back there and doing stuff it's not really supposed to. I don't know. Well, let's loosen it a little bit. That's a very dangerous game to play, pulling on that, because you run the risk of damaging it. So, oh yeah, yep, that bearing's not good. That is not good at all. That bearing in the clutch is stiff. I think I may have broke it. may have. We'll just have to see. All right, it's off. I didn't even think to clean that crank before I started pressing stuff on, but I got it off. It's not damaged too bad, but if you see that gouge in the plug-in, it would have eaten through that in, you know, a few revolutions. It would not have taken long at all. And when I was pulling it off, like you saw in the clip, I assume I left that clip in when I edited, but I was tapping on the end of the puller, and I cranked down on it pretty good, and I was about to stop, and I was like, okay, I get this flat turned up. I'll go ahead and stop here. I won't put any more pressure on it, and it popped. And I was so afraid that I broke something. I don't think I did. This still spins okay. I put the bolt back in and spun the engine. I don't hear anything grinding or grabbing. There's no more crank play than there ever was, so I think we're okay there. And the bearing in this is no worse for wear, so I think we're okay. But it definitely needs a spacer on there, and it also definitely needs to be cleaned up. So what I'm going to do is get some emery cloth. I think I got some fine grit emery cloth. I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to find a spacer that can go over that. I think, how big is... Okay, so it's probably about an inch then. I wonder if I can get an inch washer over that. That would be nice, because then I'd have a definite stop, and I wouldn't be destroying stuff. But that had me worried sick, because that clutch is about $160, and I did not want to have to buy another one. But yeah, so I guess when you put the clutch on, if you haven't done it already on your engine, if you're doing this, I guess when you put the clutch on, clean that, and then it will have to have a spacer. So I'm going to go find a spacer, and I'll bring you guys back when we're ready to go on with the clutch again. All right. Got it sanded down pretty good. It's hard to see on camera. The microphone's kind of in the way. But this lip right here, it got sanded down pretty good. Oh, this isn't diesel Power Stroke Panther. Yeah, we're not doing Power Stroke stuff today. We're done with that for a while. We're just doing mower stuff. All right, so with all that down, the next thing I did, I want to see if I can get you guys in here. Yeah, right there. All right, so I found a washer that's just about flush with this right here. And the nice thing about this washer is, first and foremost, it fits on here, and it is a little loose, okay? But what I'm thinking is, because the way it sits on here, if you get a good look at it, I don't want this to go into portrait if I tip the phone over too much. But if you get a good look at it, it moved a little bit, but essentially I can get this pretty well centered to where the crankshaft will never rub on it. So that is an option. So it should press against the solid pulley, the crankshaft pulley. It should press between that and this clutch, and it should be okay. And this should never spin on the crankshaft, because that would wear the crankshaft out pretty good. Now, the only other option that I have is to take a couple of these inch washers, and I can bore them out a little bit. I've got these Dremel stones. I can go over and I can bore those washers out, because they don't need much. They just need a little bit, and they would fit more snugly over that crankshaft pulley, and I could make that work. So what I'm thinking is, I'd rather go with this big one, because I wouldn't have to modify anything, and I mean it's just perfect. You know, I mean that's just about right. And the other thing is, it's not pulling. I don't know, where'd that bolt go? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's not. I'm not losing too many threads going with this setup, because I want maximum thread purchase on this bolt in that crankshaft. You know, I don't want stuff going anywhere. Why'd I do that? magnetic. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So right now, I was supposed to have the engine in and the belt on, and I was supposed to have this flipped around, and I was supposed to be doing the body. I was really looking to cut a wide swath in this video, but that did not happen. So we have to fix that PTO clutch before we get too far ahead of ourselves, because that cannot rub like that. It will destroy stuff, and I'm deathly afraid that if it ever does break again and I have to replace it, that if it runs and it seats on that crankshaft, if I just left it and I tried to pull it off in the future, I would have broken something serious. And I don't want to do that, so I feel really bad for making the first video, so I hope that everybody that watched the first part, where I put the clutch on, watches this part and figures out that, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get this put back on. Not going to film that. I'm going to go ahead and get it put back on, make sure everything works. I'll get the motor turned back around, mounted, and then we'll resume where I was supposed to be 2 hours ago, which is putting the drive belt on. All right, I promise I'm not dumb. I promise, but I just can't seem to win around here. So I took the big washer and I put it over this, and then I just pushed the clutch on. And I have to say, after shining this up with some emery cloth and smoothing it back down, it really does come on and off a lot easier. I thought it was a press fit, but it's actually just a really tight slip fit. So I hope whoever installs a clutch on the engine is watching this video before they go and install stuff, because in the first video I was way off. I promise I'm not dumb, okay? Because I did fix some of my mistakes. This is what I finally ended up with to go on and act as the spacer. I had to drill it out, but it should... All right, so it fits inside here real good, inside that ring, and it gives not quite enough clearance. I can drill out another one if I need to, even though it was quite an ordeal to do. But I use this as the guide, and the washer fits just fine over it. But the big thing is to get, well, wrong side. Let me flip this over here. The big thing you want is a washer that's going to fit inside of this ring, because when I got this on there, of course this is just an example, when I got it on there, yeah, it spaced the clutch out, but the problem is it's pressed between the clutch housing and the pulley. So what was going to happen was, when that was spinning, it was going to spin this, but the clutch housing is stationary. Well, what do you think that was going to do? It was just going to grind it out. So I took a washer and I made it custom fit. And let's see, largest size on that bit, which is 1.1 inch. So, and that's just right. And thank goodness that I had a step bit that big that would do it, because I don't know what I was going to do otherwise. So I drilled one washer out to 1.1 inch internal. I took my bastard file and ground it down, made it smooth. There's my file. And then it fit on there just fine. But what I think I'm going to have to do is make another one just to get it a little bit past this here. But I suppose what I can do is just go ahead and test it and see how well it's going to work. And the reason I like this a lot better is not just because it's a smaller profile, but because it's also a precise fit enough that it's going to sit on the shaft and not move up and down. So when I put the clutch on, it's going to be centered and I don't have to reach in there and hold it. And as you probably noticed, it is a little off on one side. I think this top here is the thinner side. I didn't get it exactly centered, but that's okay. It fits and it's within here, and that's all that matters. So let me get you put on the tripod here. Let's go ahead and test fit that clutch and see if it's going to work. Okay. Have to install it like this. Ah, there we go. Look at that. All right. So, okay, that's actually going to be enough right there. That's actually going to give me more than enough clearance, really. Yeah. That's... Come here. As you can probably see, I'm going to try and get you in there. Yeah, there you go. You can kind of see it. That's more than enough room because the boss on the crank pulley is not because the clutch is not pressed up right against the boss on that pulley, because on the clutch there's a little bit of a recession in it on the other side, so that washer just stops it from seating in all the way, and that gives it more than enough room to go ahead and work. So that should be just fine. So now I can go ahead and get this secured again for only, the 18 more billionth time, and then I can mount the motor and we can get somewhere. So so far, here's what's happened. I've wasted a bunch of time and made a lot of footage that didn't or shouldn't have to have been made. So I was hoping that this would be like a 20-minute video. Looks like it's going to be another 40-minute one. So that's my solution. That seems like it's going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together, get the motor mounted, and then we'll move on with something actually interesting. All right, there's the front two, and the rear two are also in there. You can kind of, well, there you can see both of them. Now, you may notice I did remove the transmission cross shaft, which is sitting right over there. It's not hard to remove. You just need to take apart the two bolts on each side that are easiest to get to, and then you should be able to just kind of grab it and gently pull the one side up, and it should come out. And I removed that with the engine in. I took that out before I realized that the PTO clutch was messed up. So now that that's done, we can run the drive belt from the crank pulley right there, off the end of my finger right there, and we can run it through that flat idler to the transmission pulley right here. And then when we're done, we'll take this fancy rod right here, and if I remember correctly, it hooks back in there, and then the spring hooks up to it, and it keeps the whole system under tension. So, oh my gosh, that's hard on my knees. Okay, so belt size. The manual calls for a 1/2 by 32, essentially, which this should work. If it doesn't and we need a 33, I can go get a 33. I've got one around. It's just being used right now, but that's okay. It can be exchanged for something else. If you go to Case Ingersoll and you search up the part number, what they will tell you is that it's an A by 32, and an A trade size is just a 1/2 inch, but just, it's just a 1/2 inch up top, and then it's about 5/16 thick. This is a little bit different. This is an MX, so it's a little bit different. It's a heavier duty. An A would work just fine because that's what they had on them out of the factory. So we're going to go ahead and get that on, and there's no real good way for me to video that, so I'll just put it on and I'll tell you how I did it. Okay, that was actually pretty easy. So I got it over the crankshaft pulley to start. Freaking bugs everywhere. All right, anyway, I got it around the crank pulley, and then I ran it back through here. You can kind of see what I did. That idler will shove down. There's a pivot back here. I think I'm going to go ahead and oil that and work it a little bit to make sure that it's moving freely, because I don't think there's a grease zert on it. So I'll just oil that up a bit and make sure it's moving freely, and then everything should be okay. As you can see, I have it hooked like this because the witness marks indicate that's how it was before, and this is also the most secure way to have it. And then to hook the spring into it one-handed, I just grabbed the end of the spring with my pliers and held the rod and hooked it in. It's got some tension on it, but it's not too bad. The nice thing about a zero-turn with a hydrostatic motor on it is that you don't have to have extreme belt tension on your drive belts, because all they're doing is spinning essentially a pump, and the pump does all the work. The belt doesn't do any of the real work, so that's kind of nice. So now we'll get the transmission cross shaft put back in, and then we'll see about getting that arm on here set up. All right, well, there's no way for me to show myself doing this without my arm being in the way, because I already tried that. Just a reminder that on the oil filter and exhaust side of the motor, you got these short bolts with the spacers. They go in like this, and then the lock, washer, and nut go on the inside here. And it is a lot easier to do this when the drive belt is not under tension, but you have to pull the shaft off to get the belt on, so it's, you know, it's not like you can just leave the shaft alone. You do have to take it off, but it is a lot easier to get it on when none of this is under tension. So my suggestion is get it routed, put tension on it, make sure it works, then put your shaft back on. After you've detensioned it, then hook it back up, and you shouldn't have to mess with it again. All right, now that we finally have the motor in, the drive belt on, the transmission cross shaft on, now the next step is to get the other arm on that goes on this side. Oh, there it is. So this arm is here in the parts diagram for the base assembly. It looks like this. So we've never had that shield to my knowledge, but what I want to point you to right here is number 23 and 21 in the diagram, which is pulley V idler. That's the 25370. And then we also have the C15671 flat idler. So, of course, there's the V idler and the flat idler. Now, I spent a lot of time researching these pulleys, so what I'm going to do is give you the dimensions and the cross-reference number for those two pulleys. So, starting with the... Gosh, I got metal shavings everywhere from drilling out that washer. So, starting with the C15671, that crosses to an MTD 756042224. And these are the dimensions. It's 3 1/4 diameter, it's 1 1/8 inch thick or wide, and it's for a 3/8 bore. Now the next one, which, let me find it here, the C25370, that crosses to a Stens 280 731. Of course, 4 1/4 diameter, 3 1/4 width, and approximately a 5/8 bore. Now the approximate is because, for some reason, and this is Grazer, for some reason they put that on there, but the old pulley also sat loose like that. Now, I do not recall pulling an insert when I removed the old pulley, and I've got it right over here. That's actually, both of these will do for what we need. So, yes, here we have the old V idler, and same thing, you know, just loose on there. And then here we have the old idler, and it barely turns. It was not going to last if I had used it. Those are what those numbers cross to. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I also want to point to this drive idler. That is the C15672 idler pulley, and I have it around. Anyway, the drive idler, it crosses to a Phoenix PHX31225100, and I'm reading these off because I don't know if anybody's going to be able to read my handwriting. I don't have the best handwriting. Now, the other thing, where am I at? Right here. The other thing I'm not sure about, I had two part numbers written down for this. One of them was an MTD 7561035A. that is a V idler, and it's not even close to the right dimensions. Now, I don't know if I wrote down the wrong number, if I was looking at the wrong thing, if I was thinking about the wrong thing, or if the people at Jack Small Engines screwed up. I'm pretty sure it was on my end, but regardless, that MTD is not correct. So the pulley that's on there right now is this Phoenix, okay, and then the type is also part of the number. The other number I had written down for this particular pulley was a Stens 280-255. And I don't remember why I didn't buy that one. It may have been that it was out of stock. It may have been that it was way more expensive. I don't remember. And I don't know if that will work or not. So you might look into a Stens 280-255. If not, order the Phoenix one. That is the right one. Now, the original pulley that was on there was 2.5 diameter, 7/8 wide, and 3/8 bolt is what holds it on there. The only major difference with the Phoenix one is that it is about an inch, it's over an inch thick. And then I think it's a little bit smaller. No, it's the same diameter, but it's just a little bit wider. There's not a lot of clearance in there, but that's okay. I mean, it works fine. And honestly, if you wanted to, as long as you've got the approximate diameter, width, and the same bore, you could go with a variety of different pulleys as long as it's a flat idler, because that whole thing, it's a tension system. So, you know, you could vary the length of your belt and get a different size pulley depending on what you want to do and what you can find and how much you want to pay for it. So, with all that being said, going back to the base assembly here, the arm is not very complicated. I mean, you've got the mainspring and everything. This is a tensioned system. That's what all this is here. And as you can see, they've got a slot punched out for you to put a 1/2-inch breaker bar in to detension the damn thing, so you can get the belt on the gearbox and everything. Now, I don't have my 1/2-inch breaker bar anymore because, well, that's a 1/2-inch breaker bar. Let that be a lesson to anyone looking to do axle nuts, really on anything, in this case, a rear axle nut on a Mazda CX-9. 1/2-inch tools do not like being stressed with a cheater that long. I've broken loose quite a few bolts with this thing, and it finally gave up the ghost today. So, because I don't have a 1/2-inch breaker bar, I'll have to borrow it from somebody else, but we won't be tensioning this system for a little bit. I'm just going to get this centered on here, get everything tightened down, and then we'll install it. Now, to install it, get my special stuff. Okay, there's one. There we go. All right. That is what you will need. The lock washer's over there on the ground, but pay special attention to right here. The bolt goes in first with the flat washer, of course. Then the spacer goes in that great big hole there. And then on the other side of the base assembly frame over here, you put your lock washer and your nut, tighten it down. Should be good to go. Now, as for routing the belt, I'm going to have to think about that for a minute. I don't know if I want to run the drive belt for the deck just yet. I don't know if I want to get it started right now or if I want to hold off and wait, because I still have to fix the gearbox. It needs a new output pulley, which I have, but that they said use Loctite on the gearbox pulleys, and that pulley is rusted, and I can't get the set screws loose, and I can't pull it off, so I'm going to have to cut it off. I don't know if I want to run the belt right now, but we'll see. Regardless, the arm does need to go on, and then we're going to turn this whole assembly so that we can make it look a little more complete. So, all right, well, why don't I just kick more stuff over? Whatever. There we go. It's looking more complete. Should have me an inner tube eventually. I'm not even going to say when because I seem to jinx it. Clutch stop is not tight, but it's installed. I had to cut it some. Take a little bit off there, but it's not too bad. everything looks pretty solid. Everything still looks good. Still got plenty of clearance. Everything should be okay. So that's going to do it for this video. I'm sorry this video is not very good. I really am. I try not to whine too much about video quality because I'm just like, well, instead of whining to the audience about it, why don't you do better? But this, it just seems like nothing works out very good when I turn on the camera. It's like this mower's cursed or something. But motor's in, it's tight, drive belt's on, the arm is on, which you should install the arm before you put the engine in. It'll increase the amount of stuff you have to maneuver around, but I had to put this bolt in backwards. The biggest thing is you need a washer on the inside to hold the spacer so the arm doesn't just fall off. But yeah, I had to do that. Probably should have looked at that a little more, but no, that's going to be the end of this video. It's kind of sucked. It's not very good, but it's, it is what it is. So what I'm going to do next is clean stuff up, and then I'll start the next video. And the next video will be getting the body on and routing the wiring harness. Maybe getting the fuel system in. I don't know. But I'm at least going to start on the body, I think. But not in this video. That'll be in the next one. So thank you guys for watching. I know this was not very good, but it's... I feel bad about it, but I'm not going to take all this apart just so I can do it again and attempt to do it better. So yeah, I'm going to get on with stuff. Thank you again. Have I said that enough yet? Have I said thank you enough? Anyway, we'll just catch you guys in the next one. I'm going to stop this before I really start rambling and all sorts of stuff like that.